Today we're going to replace the throttle body on a 2-valve V10 Ford Excursion. The throttle body in this truck is sticking. Looks like maybe somebody's tried to work on it before, and it's just been giving me problems even though I've cleaned it up and stuff. So instead of replacing it with the factory throttle body, we're going to use a unit from Accufab, which is pretty cool. There's the part number right there for Mustangs, very specific, not an F-150. But take a look at that beautiful thing. My gosh, absolute work of art. This thing is way cool. Flows 1650 CFM, which is a lot more than the stock unit. We probably won't see any horsepower gains from this, but I figured if I got to replace the throttle body, I might as well get something that's a little bit better. Inside the box, it comes with the gasket, of course, and then the hardware to mount the throttle position sensor. A lot of times these screws will break off in the old throttle body, so they give you some new ones. The sensor we're going to use is an NTK. It's a really good idea to use NTK or Motorcraft. Stay away from most of the other stuff if you can. Replacing this thing is ridiculously easy. You really only need one tool if you're not replacing the TPS, and that is a 5/16 socket. So let me get the camera set up and we'll get started. All right, I'm gonna try to stay out of the frame here. First thing we're gonna do is remove the linkage. Go ahead and take this spring out there. Then we can turn this thing all the way around and pull the cable out. This is gonna be exactly the same for pretty much all these trucks. I guess if you have like a throttle body spacer, it may be a little bit different. I'm gonna go ahead and take this pipe completely off, just for the sake of the video, so you can see a little bit better what's going on. Give that guy a pinch and pull it forward. Then we should be able to take all of these out. Really careful not to drop these bolts because fishing out from under the intake is a pain in the butt. I put a little bit of RTV on this thing last time I put it in, so hopefully I didn't overdo it, and I'm hoping it's not a mess inside there. I'm gonna have to go get the rubber hammer because that thing is stuck on there. Okay, I forgot to push play in the video, but rubber hammer, got that guy off. So I cleaned this thing the best I could, and I still couldn't get it to work right. Not exactly sure what's going on. I think maybe somebody filed or sanded on the throttle plates, the little blades there. I'm not exactly sure why they would do that. Or maybe the center shaft is bent. But anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and stuff the elbow here. You can see the opening on the elbow, or the intake elbow here, is quite big, but the opening on the bottom that goes to the intake is pretty small. So that's one of the reasons I really don't think that we're gonna see any gains from going with a bigger throttle body, because we still have a restriction that's even smaller in the way. Also, the mass airflow sensor is quite a big restriction. It's pretty small on these trucks. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is put the throttle position sensor on the throttle body, and then we'll get it together. Okay, I've got the throttle position sensor on. We can go ahead and stick this guy on there. I've also got the gasket behind there. So this truck is a little bit weird. It has a working EGR system, and this is a first for me. I've never had an Excursion or a Super Duty truck that had an EGR system. When I first pulled this throttle body apart to check out why it was sticking, it was absolutely caked inside there with EGR crap. Unfortunately, it was pretty gross. I'm going to end up getting rid of the EGR. But I think I'm going to be stuck with a check engine light. So what I did was I went out and I bought a federal emissions ECU, and I'm going to have the security system disabled on it. so I can use it on this truck, and then we'll put it on here so we can get rid of the EGR. I don't really care about the EGR, but I have some long tube headers that we're going to put on this thing that are not provisioned for the EGR, so that's really why I want to get rid of it. So on this one, I'm not really going to go off of torque specs. We're going off of number 2. So let's see if everything bolts on and snaps up like it should. I think it should. Looks like the throttle cable has some looseness, so I'm going to mess with this and see if I can. So we'll see if it works out. I was a little worried about that because I think the spacing on the Mustangs for the throttle cable, like the spacing for this bracket, are a little bit different. I'm sure we can space out the throttle cable with some zip ties if we end up having to do that. Alright, well, I'm going to fiddle it with this thing and get it put back together. And then once I do, we'll start it up and see how it idles. Okay, we've got it all together. Let's start this thing up. So the problem I was having before, one, the throttle would stick, so I'd be giving it gas just to come off of an idle and the truck would jump, because all of a sudden it would be stuck and then it would go. Second problem I was having was the throttle blades weren't sealing up like they should at idle, or at startup actually, and idle. So when I would first start, the engine would rev all the way up to like over 2,000 RPMs, and I just really wasn't comfortable with that. That's not a good thing to do for dry starts. And then second, I always had a high idle. So I may disconnect the battery just so this thing can kind of relearn idle. It may do it on its own though with that new throttle position sensor. So we'll fast forward here and see if the idle comes. Well, it looks like this thing is idling right where it should be. The RPMs are a little bit high on the gauge, but we're right around 850 RPMs, and seems just fine. So we'll do some driving around, and if I need to update the video for any reason, then I'll probably post a second video after we drive it some. We are going to go out of town this weekend, pulling the camper, so something's different, I'll make a video. If you got any questions, put them in the comments. Thanks for watching.